So the scope really defines what your project is here to do, and you can alter it if you want to, but usually you don't. Okay? Also in this process group, this is a lot of like the project management plan. You're deciding like who's going to do what, how the project's going to go, the who, what, where, when, why about your project happens. Cool. All right. Now I'm on executing, so you're nice. All right. The executing process group is what it sounds like it is. This is you executing your project. So these are the processes performed to complete the work defined by the project management plan. The project management plan is the plan. If you come out with nothing else from this whole workshop, know that you should have one of these. It's very detailed. Has anybody ever applied to grants here and done a work plan? Yeah, so it's like way more detailed than that. Way more detailed. And really like the project management plan, will come back to it, but it essentially is this document that if you ever fell off your project and somebody came along and wanted to do it, they would know exactly where to pick up and how to do everything by reading this document. So that's what you're doing. So you're using your project management plan, what you wrote in the project management plan, and then you're just executing according to the plan that you set up. Okay? Cool.
Monitor and controlling. For folks that have done grants or have worked on projects, you know that you have a certain quality that you want in terms of how your project is going to go. And so in the monitor and controlling phase, process groups, what we have are things like quality control. So this is a great time where you think about evaluations, for example. If you're doing a project that's 1 year long, when the project timelines are you going to do evaluations? So like beginning, you're going to have your baseline, you have your participants, where are they at? To the middle, like have they improved in your project? If so, how can you change your project to get the quality that you want, the end result quality that you want, and then also thinking about the end in terms of evaluation. Can I add more things? Do you have anything else to add? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, y'all. I'll get better as we go along.
Yeah. Actually, I do have. In this section also, if something in your project's not working, this is the time to change it. Don't just be like, we'll just go along with this, and then at the end we'll say, well, this didn't work. There are opportunities in your project, depending on the length, to like make changes. But when you do make a change, you'll see it says track, review, and regulate. You have to track those changes, and there's usually a regulation process if you do project management very in-depthly, that authorizes you to make that change, track that change, and approve that change before you can actually be changing your project, right? But it's a really good tool to kind of like improve your project or your program before the program's done, before you even get all that feedback at the end. If there's an opportunity to make a change there, that'll help the program be better. Let's say you're doing outreach for a while with doing it one way and you're like getting no one. This is an opportunity for you to be like, all right, this is not working, switch it up. Do something else for outreach, outreach, and see if there's a different result for your program. That's all in the monitoring and controlling process. All right, and then you're closing, yay, the end of your project. All of the processes performed to finalize your activities across all process groups to formally close a project or phase. So what that means is that when you're closing your project, you're not just saying, you know, last workshop, do your evaluation, pizza party for all, yay. It actually means you have to close anything that was outstanding from the last 4 process groups. So if there was anything in the initiating phase, or the monitoring and controlling phase, or the execution, or the planning process, make sure all of those aspects are closed before you close the entire project. Right? A lot of the times, for example, we don't think of, did we collect all of our media forms? Did we collect all of our registrations? You know, sometimes we're in the hustle and bustle and we don't know did we file everything? Did we write our final report? Like these are all closing process kind of group things that you want to make sure to really close the project down. Check in with our funder. There's a list. So that's what this process group is. So as you can see with the 5 process groups, they go in a sequential order of what you're doing, but you could be working in any of those 5 process groups anywhere along the project until it is closed. There will be activities in all of them. Are there any questions so far? Cool. So, on top of the process groups, there are these things called project management knowledge areas. And a lot of these actually speak, you'll find them and speak to the creation of your project management plan. Okay? So under project management, PMI's Guide to Project Management, these are the 10 areas that we focus on when planning for our projects. So one is the integration. So you just saw that there are 5 different process groups and 10 different knowledge areas. So integration is really about you planning how all of those things are going to work together. Okay? All right, great. That was actually very great. Scope, we already talked about it. What is your project set out to do? The goals that you need to meet, and making sure you don't creep on your scope. Okay? Making sure you're not going outside of what you want to do because maybe some funding came, or a space opportunity came, or some other opportunity that makes you want to kind of expand out. You have to pay attention to your scope. Time, we're looking at project start and finish time. You have an end goal in mind, or a goal for how long the project is supposed to go. If we are running over, or if we're early on the project, all of those things affect the project. So what does that mean for us? The time section in your project management plan will tell you what to do. Cost, that's a big one, particularly if you're running your project off grants or self-funding even. Your cost is finite. If you don't have an infinite amount of dollars, unless you do, and there are billionaires. I don't want to discourage if there are billionaires in here. But if you have most of us will have a very finite budget, and so the cost section of your project management plan and that knowledge area is all about what to do if you are running over your budget, if you're running under budget, what can you do? This is also like stuff like how to get stuff in terms of the community project stuff, how to get things that will offset the amount of money you actually have to put in. So how can you get in-kind, sponsorships, donations, that all deals with the cost. And so that cost of your plan, that cost section of your project management plan tells you what to do when these things occur. Because you will have plans for that. Quality, the quality section of that plan or that knowledge area is all about monitoring and controlling and evaluating your project or your program. So in that section, you're going to put in what your evaluation tools and methods are, what you're trying to gain from that evaluation. It's all there. How you're going to do that evaluation. Because you remember, the project management plan has to be written or built out in a way that if somebody else came in and took your job or took your thing, or you got sick and you're like, yo, friend, help me finish my project, they can pick it up and know exactly your intention and the way the project's supposed to go. So they would know how to administer the evaluation in the way that you intended it to be evaluated. Yes, question? Yeah. Right. Yeah, so this in your project management plan under quality, it's like actually instructions on exactly what tool you're using. Maybe there is an example of the survey you're using, when you should do this, how often you should do it, who is going to, which demographics you're targeting in your project. It's very, very detailed. That's why I said project management plan is much more detailed than a work plan. Because it has to be like you're leaving this for somebody. Or there's no question in the team about who's doing what, when, where, and how. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of like a process in terms of like, okay, let's say you're doing a music project, you want to do your quality control. So the section of your project management plan is going to say, all right, cover design. So the cover gets done. Who is responsible for approving it? And what are the conditions that it needs to be approved on? It doesn't have to have 3 separate like drawings that you choose from. So it's really about you talking about to your team, this is the process for how we choose the cover design, and that's just that section. And then you move on to the next section, mixing, mastering. who's doing it, who approves this, who does that. So it's really, you go down for the quality of your whole project. Yeah, it's very detailed. Like, to the point where the purpose of the project management plan is when you're in a team setting with your team doing a project, then nobody can be like, oh, yo, I didn't know, man. No, you did, because right here, very detailed, section 3.4-B, all right? That's what a project management plan is for. To be efficient in going in project. Sorry, procurement. Does anybody know everybody knows what procurement is? Do we want to full definition? Procurement is basically when you have to go out and purchase something, either a thing or a service, right? And so this procurement process, I mean, really goes for, like, on a larger scale. Imagine if there's a construction company, we're building a school, and the school board has to choose construction companies or contractors, and it has to be a fair process. Procurement. It's basically you purchasing a service, and this part of the project management plan is telling you exactly how you lay out the call out, what's the criteria you're choosing your thing on, who's the jury, how many days, like everything that procurement process itself has to do before you can choose who you're hiring. Obviously, it's more complex for a construction project than it is for, maybe a music project. Maybe it's not as complex, but it gives you a sense of, instead of being like, oh, I read it, and then it doesn't work out, Like, it gives you some kind of guidelines and criteria to really thoroughly think about who you're bringing onto the project, especially if your hard money is going in to hire somebody, right? 7 is human resources. For those of us who don't have big projects or we're community and doing stuff, it still matters, human resources. Even if you have a small little section that kind of talks about how people enter the team, how people leave the team, confidentiality, non-disclosure, those types of things we don't think about until, we get into it and then somebody leaves and leaks all your stuff, somebody else stole your project. Those can all be addressed in the human resources and how people come in and out of the project. Okay? Number 8 is communications. Super critical. It's actually I think one of the most critical sections that needs to be detailed out in a project management plan, because that is the area, as we all know, communications can always get, broken telephone very quickly. That whole section actually is just a section to tell you how your team is supposed to communicate. So if you want to make a change in your project and the communications part of your plan says nobody can make changes without email, it has to be in email authorized by this person. That means if somebody made a change without doing it that way, that change is void. You can't do that change, right? Or that's like that, because they cannot make that change because you didn't follow the communication process for to make a change, right? We don't put these processes in enough, I think, in community, and so that's when they're like, oh, but I talked to so-and-so and they said yeah, and you're like, no, man, we're talking about this. It makes it very clear about how you talk to your team, how your team communicates with each other, with outside stakeholders, with community, whatever. You're very clear about it, right? And everybody's on the same page. Everybody's communicating in the same way. That's what communications, that section is for. Number 9, actually bigger than communications are. Communications is 2, but number 9 is my number 1, is risk management. In community projects, a lot of the time, and I know because I've been doing them for a long time myself, we're excited. A lot of us are artists or community leaders. We're in there. We're like, yo, let's just get this done. Let's do it for the kids, for the youth. And we're so excited to get in. Then we jump in our project and a bunch of stuff happens that we could have actually, if we had sat down for a little bit, talked about and said, yo, what might happen in our project that will slow us down or cause it to collapse, or we have to make a change now because we didn't think about this. Risk management, that whole section of your project management plan is about creating backup plans on backup plans on backup plans. You sit there, we're going to do a risk management exercise in this workshop today, and you sit there and you think about all the possibilities that could happen that will affect your project, and then you make plans for them. Very tiny, small plans. They could be very large and complex depending on the project, but you actually plan ahead for those things. Okay? And this section of your project management plan tells your team exactly what those things, if something happens, what you do for each of those things. So if something happens, And people are like, oh, I don't know what to do. Yes, right in the risk management plan, we said this was going to happen. There was a high probability of it happening. Here is what we were supposed to do. So that's really great. And number 10 is stakeholder management. Everybody's project has stakeholders. Stakeholders are people who are directly affected by your project in one way or another. They could be your boss. They could be the community. If you're doing community projects, it could be yourself. It could be your partners. It could be the government. All types of stakeholders, right? If the government is giving you funding, that's a stakeholder. So this section of your project management plan is actually made to explain to your team or communicate with the team how each stakeholder is to be connected with, or what we need to do to kind of manage the relationships between those stakeholders. Because how you manage government officials is not how you manage community members, right? And you have to have plans for each of your stakeholders so that everybody is connected with in the right way. And so those are your 10 knowledge areas that connect with, that you'll find within your project management plan and connect with the 5 processes. And if that wasn't confusing enough, they created this very lovely chart for you. So if you ever pick up the Project Management Guide, the Project Management Institute Guide, Body of Knowledge, oh my god, it's a very long, I usually bring it. It's like, we call it the pin box. It's the book that you use to like study for your PMP and certification. This chart is like the chart you have to memorize. But it's really great because you see at the top here all of your process groups and all of your knowledge areas and how they connect. So you'll see like where this and this align, what needs to be dealt with in that time of your project planning. Okay? So it's really, really good. I use it a lot. Cool. Oh, well, I'll actually go through ArtReach. All right, so I gave you the little Coles Notes version of each of the sections, but I am going to go through what the activities are that kind of go through each of these things. Are there any questions so far before I continue? Yeah. I will be emailing it to every one of you. Yay! Right? I hate when I have to come and like take notes. I just want to listen. Right? Like, I don't understand. Yeah, no. Everybody's getting, for those of you who came a little late, I said all these digital resources will be sent to you. Yeah, ArtReach gives away all of this stuff. Because it's for you. Alright, so under the project integration management, that was number 1 for the knowledge area. You are going to develop your project charter. So in the project management world, that's just a document that is giving the permission for the project to start. So if it's you and your brethren getting together, everybody signs their thing and say, yeah, that's what we're doing, sign it. Done. That's your project charter. And kind of gives everybody like a role. Roles are really key in that charter. So everybody will be assigned a role and kind of like a place in the project and what they're kind of responsible for. Number 2 is developing the project management plan. So if you think executing your project is going to be overwhelming, it won't be if you take the time to do this. So it's a super, super detailed plan that lays out exactly how your project's supposed to run A to B with all those little knowledge areas mapped out. Nobody should be able to be like, yo, that's not how we're doing it. Yes, it's going to be here. We all agree on that. Every little step should be put in there. Obviously, it's like really tough and to like spend time, and people don't like. We don't spend a lot of time with me. Like I said, we're really excited to get in and jump in on a project and we know what we're doing. But if we do this plan really well ahead of time, it actually will help to reduce some of like the things that pop up that happen or miscommunication among team members. The project management plan is really made to make your project execution really efficient. So we're not sitting there like bickering like, yo, he said, she said, because this person didn't tell this person. It's there, so nobody can argue with you. You all put it together. All right. Direct and manage your project work. So this is how you're going to manage. You're understanding how you're going to manage that. The monitoring and controlling your project work. So this is like tracking, reviewing, and reporting your changes. And so monitoring and controlling in like major projects are really big. Like, you know, in a small project, you might be like, we want to change this paint from red to blue. Okay, that's easy. But if like that example was in a larger corporate, we want to change this paint from red to blue. All right, we got to take that all the way up to the change the change control committee. They're going to decide, and then they're going to pass it down. Like it's a big process. It can be a big process. So that's what this is setting you up. You're setting up for how changes can happen in the project and how that's monitored and how that's authorized, etc. Because I mean, red to blue paint is one thing, but when you're dealing with millions of dollars, maybe a slight change can make a huge difference in your project, and you have to make sure everybody's on board. Perform integrated change control. That was the reviewing all your change requests that I was just talking about, and then closing your project or phase, making sure all aspects of the project, all of the process areas are done. That's what project integration management is. So it's really all the activities you're figuring out how everything's going to go together and get the project done. Cool. All right. We are going to do an exercise because I need a break from talking and you need a break from listening. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about project management plans versus work plans, as some of us are artists or community workers and we're dealing usually with grants or small plans. So the difference between project management plans and work plans is vast, which I learned when I was doing project management. I was like, oh, okay. For example, when I had to do a project management plan for school. I'm like, I got this because I do work plans. I've been doing work plans 10 plus years. This document was 52 pages long. It's like 52 pages and 8 of us worked on it. It was really, really long. But at the end of the day, you could not know anything in the project. Like, it was all laid out exactly how everything was supposed to go, and if something happened, there was a solution to that thing in the project management plan for the most part. So project management plans are very detailed, can be hundreds of pages long. I mean, 52 pages is for school, okay? Whereas work plans are very small, and they're okay for smaller projects, and they're also really okay for the day-to-day thing, like to see if you're on track, for the larger goals of the project, etc. But if you need to get into something, if something gets into small detailed stuff, you need that project management plan. The better developed your project management plan, the smoother the project runs, hands down. The more you put into that project management plan, the less the team or somebody can question what's happening in the project or make changes without your authorization or spend a lot of time trying to fix a problem because everybody's perspective is now all of a sudden coming out of the works, right? It was already done in the beginning before the project started, so the more detailed, the better. Whereas work plans are kind of detailed, but not to the extent of a project management plan, and they kind of just more help you guide the larger goals or overall purpose of the project. Project management plans are created to be an ongoing reference point, so you're always looking to it if you need questions. Answers to questions your team might have. Like I said, again, if you have somebody new on your team and need to train them, go to your work plan.
Project?
Yeah, you're going to have to come up here or project.
Sorry.
So can you hear me if I just volume?
Yeah, you might have to come up.
Deliver creative writing workshops to people with mental health conditions, issues, and so far we've been running it for 2 years, and we publish an anthology each year, and then organize a book launch and kind of fundraiser for the anthology. So the whole thing kind of runs right now under project funding, so the whole thing is one big project. But for the purpose of this, I focused on planning the work time for the book launch and fundraiser.
Perfect. So take us through your thing.
Well, I wanted to share it because I got a little bit stuck on the difference between goals and objectives. I didn't really have anything under objectives yet. I had consciousness and stuff under goals because I wasn't sure what the stuff is. So my goals were an opportunity for participants to share their work with the community. Number 2 was to solicit donations. Number 3 was to raise awareness of the project. And number 4 is to sell books.
All right, and what are the activities under those? Like, what are the things you're going to do to get to those goals? What did you make up?
Well, I just kind of had the process of planning the event.
Yep.
So I didn't get a chance to figure out the order yet, but number 1 is probably establish a planning committee committee, and that would be staff and participants, volunteers. Decide on a date as a committee, book the venue. I guess decide on a date and a venue, and then book the venue. Recruit staff and volunteers to help out. Book a photographer, book a musician, promote the event, design programs and print them. We usually do a kind of participant appreciation ceremony, so getting certificates for that. Confirm the program, so decide on who's going to be reading their work at the launch and what the order of events will be. And then book a rehearsal workshop and book a volunteer orientation session. A little bit out of order.
No, that's fine. That's just fine. And oh, that's fine. Okay. And I see some. Yeah. And then there's some goals, and then eventually some timelines. Okay, cool. Can I use this for the? Very cool. All right. Thank you. All right. So in this work plan, which she kind of just outlined for you, and even in the way that this work plan is structured, so just to clarify for the objectives, so the objectives are kind of what you're hoping to achieve from the actual work that you're doing that will link back to the goals. So if you're doing an opportunity for participants to share their work, an objective would be to create the final presentation. That's the objective. And then all the activities you just listed are the activities to make that presentation happen. Okay? But even with that, even just having the goal, having the objective there, creating that final presentation, listing all these activities that are there to create that final presentation, and then saying who's going to do what, and then putting the timeline there. This is like the basics of a work plan. And they're really great because from this work plan, I know what our overall goal is. I know what objectives we have to reach those goals are. I know vaguely like what the activities are, generally what the activities are to like create that final presentation. I know who's going to do what, and I know when that thing is supposed to be done by. Okay? And that's all I know from this work plan. And not because like you didn't fill it out, but that's all this work plan is telling me. Right. But if you were to compare it to a project management plan, here are some of the questions I would ask. So, okay.
I would ask about insurance. Does your org have insurance? Does their insurance extend into another venue if you get a separate venue outside of wherever your insurance policy is? I would ask that question.
Mm-hmm. I would ask for like you have who's going to do what. I would ask, how is your team planning on communicating throughout the project? Are people supposed to email? Can people like have side conversations? Are there little subcommittees to each thing? Like that's not spelled out here.
I would ask, do you have a press point person? Like do you have press releases? Do you know what points you're going to say to the press if you do talk to press? So the products which were not included in the original scope. So why? To prove yourself, brownie points, divert attention from defects. That happens a lot in IT. Consequences, increased project costs, changing expectations for industry, more risks, and customer backlash. So in the not-for-profit world, I've done this. I've gold-plated. So I've done more than what I've been expected in my project. I've over-delivered, and I've burned myself out doing too much. Sometimes you can choose to do that, but sometimes that also decreases the worth in other people's projects across the industry. So for example, coming back to the graphic design thing, say someone is going to make this poster and the regular rate is like $300 for this one poster, but this one person's like, oh, I'm going to just do it for like $50. And so now this organization thinks that they can get $50 posters everywhere across the board, and they'll ask like someone that's been 10 years deep to do a poster for $50 and expect high quality results, and that just lowers the industry standard. Yeah. So gold plating is not very good because you're not being competitive, and you're not really helping the industry grow.
True.
Any other examples of gold plating before we keep on going? Great.
Like developing mobile applications.
Oh yes. Yeah. Like what has happened?
Developing mobile applications for some client or something. Yeah.
Oh, mobile apps.
Yeah.
Developing them.
It takes 6 months to develop, and at the end of 6 months, you have features like 10 more features.
Yeah.
Yeah. That definitely happens. I have the hand.
I think gold plating actually just, like happens a lot of times because people don't feel like they value their experience. It's like if you don't go to school for something but you have like lived experience, then automatically in your mind you're devaluing your experience when actually your lived experience has higher quality than your education from school.
It's true.
That's what.
It's true. That is so common in this sector. Like
Yeah.
people want to like prove themselves because they don't have that formal education, and so they do more, and then then people follow. And that's another thing. People end up being mentored by those people, or feel like that's what you're supposed to do, and then it creates an effect in the leadership of people coming up in that sector and be like, yeah, we have to learn ourselves how to do this because that's the standard. So yeah, it's true.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so project time management. So time management, I like time management. It includes the processes required to manage the timely completion of the project. So 1, plan, schedule, management. Developing a management plan to ensure project is completed on time. 2, define activities, identifying all of the activities that need to take place to complete the project. Sequence the activities, so you're putting them all in order. Estimate activity resources. So resources are usually in project management world, it's like people and things and money. So estimating all the resources needed to complete each activity. Estimate activity durations. Estimating how long each activity will take. Develop schedule, developing a detailed schedule for the project. Control schedule, monitoring and controlling the schedule and adjusting for any changes.
Sorry, we'll just one second.
Yeah.
So as you can see with the time management, this goes beyond what the work plan. So in this work plan, there was just like a lovely start and end date. That's all. Nothing else. But as you can see, there's like multiple. There are multiple things that you are doing with that. So that timeline is very, very vague, largely sections. But when you're estimating activity durations in project management at like a more minuscule level, it's like, what was one of your activities? You have to build a committee. So like how long each of those meetings are, right? And if you're a staff person managing that committee, when you're estimating the activity resources, one staff person at the cost of $26 an hour times that 1 hour times however many times you need. Because you have to break that down in project management planning. It actually that's how the time, cost, and scope go together all the time. That's why that's there.
Okay, we're gonna jump into Gantt charts. Oh, middle. Got it. Thank you.
Can't.
Charts. Okay, Gantt charts. I'm gonna read this again because it was requested. Gantt chart is a bar chart or schedule of information where activities are listed on the vertical axes, dates are shown on the horizontal axes, and activity durations are shown as horizontal bars placed according to start and finish dates. If dates are made to one activity, it affects all the other activities. So if one bar changes, everything else should change. This chart can tell you where one activity can begin and end, and whether you can start the next activity or not. This chart also tells you if you're behind, on time, or ahead of schedule of your project, and you can make them using Microsoft Project or on Excel. There are other free sites that you can use as well. So this is an example of one that I've used it was just like $1,000 for a grant, but it was really easy and simple, and they seemed to like it because it was visual. So I made it on, what did I make this on? On Google Sheets. Thank you, whoever said Sheets.
Google Sheets.
And so you can freeze the top row so that whenever you scroll, you just pretty much scroll and it'll stay there. But the bar charts show where everything is supposed to happen throughout the various months. So that's an example of a Gantt chart.
You want to tell us what's the color? colors? What when it's gray?
Oh, okay. So gray for me, gray is just like the regular stuff. Red is important, so we wanted to deposit the money. You know, we need to get our money. Launch and share our trailers. So this is for a video series called Virgins the Series. It's pretty much like it's about 20-something-year-olds navigating life as a millennial. So this one, participant evaluations, was happening in March and April. This is important because it was the very end of the workshop series, and so it was happening throughout the workshop series, and so the workshops were happening in the different weeks that were going on. We had some scripts that they had to do in the workshops, and so those ones were edited and finalized. And then we have a showcase in June, but actually happens in July. And final report, also major thing.
Can you go back up?
Yes.
So this is not my Gantt chart, but I'm gonna go off out again. Go down. Yeah. So where these blocks start, does that mean you can start your project? Or like start the activity, the next activity you can start? And I see some activities are some. Yes. So that's how that works. Okay, when we were talking about on the other, in the PowerPoint, is this chart will tell you, so this activity is going, and this means that this next activity starts when this one finishes, right? And then there are some that are going, up there. And there's some activities that are going at the same time. And that's, it's good for you to know that, because sometimes we're like, we want to jump onto the next thing, but that thing requires the activity before to have been completed before that next thing can happen. If you jump in, you won't have the resources maybe, or it causes some other problem, and you end up having to come back. Okay?
Is the number referred to the list on the site?
The number refers to just the date. So the 12th, because this was just by like random dates of the
it's just
month.
going by fives up here. So it tells you like if that didn't fall on one of those, it's telling you the date. Yeah. So that's the intro.
Yeah.
I don't think it's too much, but therefore I ask, if something was to get delayed somewhere along the way, how do you progress over? Is there like a shortcut, or would you have to go into each row?
Yeah, imagine if we did this for
That would be so sad. You were like 500%.
No, actually, I don't even think it would be that, because I find like with art organizations, because we're working with such a finite, like we don't have profit. So it's finite. Folks are very efficient with things, a lot more efficient. The inefficiencies, I would say, are in the schedule. I think the schedule would be a lot higher, because we end up being like, this came up, we have to push the project, However, in the cost, I think we're really good at working with what we have, and if we don't get funding, we work with whatever the funding we do have. So the schedule will run, yes.
So number one, plan cost management, developing a plan to manage the budget, make sure the project doesn't go over. Number two, estimating the costs, so estimating just how much things cost. Determining the budget, so setting the budget. And control costs, monitoring the expenses to ensure they stay on or under budget.
And so something for estimating budget, an example of that is, so when let's say you're doing an arts project and it involves cameras, you're not just gonna be like, yeah, this, and that, in your project budget. You might want to get 3 different quotes from 3 different places and shop around. In larger corporate big projects, they do that through procurement, actually, and they actually shop around and find like the best bang for their buck, and that's what we should be as well, the community doing. And that's what project estimating comes at. So you actually create an estimate budget, and then you can create a real budget. Is that what you get?
Also, in terms of budget stuff, people sometimes miss the little things. So if you think about a camera, you gotta think about an SD card. You have to think about, what if your SD card crashes? Well, or what if your external hard drive crashes? These are things that you gotta think about.
Yeah, insurance, stuff like that. Like the small things you don't think about until an emergency comes up. You will think about that for our next activity on risk. Because when you do a risk plan, that's when you see a lot of hidden costs and the thought of if you're just going to make the project as, the service and the costs.
So, that's the wrap on that. Oh wait, did I talk about quality? Okay, almost. We almost did it. Almost. Project quality management includes the processes and activities of the performing organization that determines quality policies, objectives, and responsibilities so that the project will satisfy the needs for which it is undertaken. So number one, plan quality management. So planning how you will make sure the quality, to ensure the quality of the project. Number two, perform quality assurance. So checking the quality of the project. And three, control quality. So monitoring and controlling the project to ensure quality.
Super important in community. Just because we're community and just because we have a finite budget doesn't mean we don't want top quality stuff for the young people that we are serving or supporting. Or if you're not in community, for the projects that you're working on, quality should always be one of your number one priorities. And sometimes that causes the time, the schedule to overrun, or the cost to overrun. But quality is in the middle of the triangle for businesses. All right, so we're gonna take a little break because it's hot. We're just talking.
Quickly, what
And managing them. So really in your plan, the project management plan itself, you need to plan how you're going to manage your team, how you're going to hire your team or bring your team on if it's not hiring, how you're going to support your team, and then how you're going to supervise that team and monitor them, right? And I know some of us are like, we're working in a collective, why are we monitoring performance for collective? But actually, it's not a bad thing, it's also a good thing. It's monitoring your team's performance could be something as simple as like, we meet weekly, and I ask everybody who was assigned, what's the status on your part of the project? And if they're like, I didn't get it done, I'm struggling. Great opportunity to then support your team and be like, all right, so and so take over there, or how can we make your task a little bit lighter, or what are you struggling with, and maybe we switch up tasks because this is not your strength. So that's why HR management is really key in project management, because it's really about your people and managing your people. It's really about being able to know when that person's burnt out or is on their way to burning out before they burn out and then crashes your project or whatever. So this is key. Have a plan around this, okay? Even if it's like a little contract between you and your friends, if that's just putting the thing together, that these are the things that we value as a collective, and we are going to make sure that those are fulfilled and supporting our feelings. So things like self-care, or speaking to each other with respect, or if a change needs to be made, it's only in email, because if so-and-so tells so-and-so something and the other person doesn't know, it could cause a conflict. So it's really about just managing your team, whether it's a small team, whether it's a large organization. Quick. Another one of these, I love it. 50% of projects fail due to breakdown in communication. It is so clear. It's so true. It's so true. That infighting happens. Somebody does the wrong thing because they didn't know a change was made, and that's not how we're doing it anymore. Somebody painted a whole wall red and said, "Bridget, we're doing it blue." Like, you didn't get the memo? No, because I don't know how the memos are flowing. So that's what that is. So making sure communications is on point, and that's how you do it. So project communication management includes the processes that are required to ensure timely and appropriate planning, collection, creation, distribution, storage, retrieval, management, control, monitoring, and ultimately the disposition of project info. See, that's a lot of things to do, so you have to plan. Planning your communication management, this is key. Developing a plan for how all the communication in your project is going to happen. So if somebody's communicating in a way that's not in that plan, sorry, bro, like, what do you want me to do? You did not send the email, so this thing didn't get done. That's what causes the breakdown. Everybody in your camp knows exactly how things have to be communicated. Anybody new who comes on gets this, and so there's no breakdown in communications. No he said, she said, no broken telephone, no message lost. Because that's actually what kills your time and the schedule part. And then as you saw in the triangle, it affects the time, which means the cost goes up, the quality might go down. Yes.
For young folks, I know that with me, I have teams where we're on WhatsApp all the time. Like, I have 2 team members on a team. I have 2 different projects, and we're on WhatsApp. Everybody.
Basically, what this means is that you will have given yourself enough time before the project even starts to think about. You sit there, even if it's one meeting with all your friends or whoever's on your team. You're like, all right, today's meeting is to think about all the bad things that could possibly happen in every single section of our project. And then we're going to come up with a plan for all of them. And then we're going to see which ones most likely would happen, which ones are least likely to happen, and what's in the middle, and you rank it, right? And there, just in that one meeting, you will have created that. And then when those things happen or don't happen, you're ready for those things. As opposed to like when it happens and you're like, I have to do this, but I also have to do this. Like that's pretty much. So that's what you're going to do in your meeting. You're going to identify your risks. Right? You're going to analyze and then prioritize, aka your ranking, how likely each risk will happen. You're going to perform quantitative risk analysis, and basically all that really means in plain English is that you're going to figure out numerically, aka how that risk, if that happens, affects your budget. Basically. Somebody just drops out and they were going to do something for free, and now you have to actually hire somebody. There goes your cost because you didn't plan for that. Unless you do plan for that in your contingency, right? So that's an example of that. Plan risk responses. You're going to have a lovely little outline of each of those risks and how, if it happens, you're going to deal with it. And then you're going to control your risks. So all throughout your project, similar to evaluation or anything else, you're going to keep looking. Like, all right, is this going to happen? You look down the risk list. All right, this was in this part of our project. It said that this might likely happen. Are we still thinking that's like a risk that's going to happen? If not, it moves down the list. If you see that risk maybe potentially happening, now you got to be a little bit more heightened on monitoring it and making sure that plan is ready to go in case it really does happen. Okay, that's what risk is all about. Risk management. That's what it's about. And if you can do this, you will avoid like 90% of the crazy reaction stuff that you have to do in a project. Okay? Like, and project risks are so crucial and critical and like literally can throw off stuff in your project. And risk could be anything, things that you don't think about but you should think about. Like for example, a project risk, in a community project for example, I was supporting a young project. They were doing a videography project, creating a documentary, and that was their scope of the project. And then one person in their camp was murdered. The whole project just was like, no, obviously nobody's planning for that. But it is actually a reality for some young people who are working in the community. That's a real risk. I mean, it's a risk every day in your life for your project. But that's a real risk that you have to plan for. Do we need like counseling set up? Like, like if this happens, are we ready for that? Right? Because if you know your lived reality and it's a potential lived reality based on where you live and what you're experiencing and where you are, it's a risk. And you have to plan for it. It sucks and it's very morbid. But had they planned for it, the project wouldn't have stalled for so long because they would have been like, all right, if this happens, this is the timeline, we're going to regroup, or maybe we switch the project, whatever. So eventually they did regroup and they actually ended up switching up the whole project, redoing the documentation dedicated to that person. But it took them off track for a very long time, obviously, and rightly so. But they could have gotten they had to get a lot of support from their trustee to figure out where to go to counsel. Some of the youth were having a hard time to deal with it. They didn't know where to go, et cetera, et cetera. Had they had that in, then counsel's going to be right there. We know where we're going. We know who our supports are, right? And it could have supported youth a lot faster than them sitting with it and figuring out and feeling like maybe the project's going to fall apart by themselves. So that's a real risk example. Okay?
I would also add positive risks.
Yes.
I like doomsday thinking, but also like positive risks. You could get more money. What if you have more volunteers show up and actually show up? Or what if someone donates equipment? So there's like positive risks that can happen where people want to support your project, and you can also think about those.
Yes, and you kind of like think about them as opportunities after. And also you want to plan for them too, because what if you have more volunteers and you don't have enough things for them to do? Or your manager was like, whoa, we only have 6 on the list, now we have 10, where am I going to be? You have to also plan for those as well. But those are great things to plan for. And again, they're also ranked likely to most likely, not likely,
So what you say?
So they're also ranked to most likely will happen to least likely will happen. Maybe you're popping after a CBC interview and everybody's like, yo, I want to volunteer now. Where were you? That's a great opportunity and a positive risk. So you want to plan for that. Like you knew the CBC or article is gonna happen, you're like, we might be a little hot. Let's add a few more volunteer slots just in case
Yeah.
people want to jump on our wagon. So that's a great risk opportunity. All right. So this is just, I love Phonical Show. It's these really cute little pictures. But yeah, this is totally a great example of risk, and we're going to do a risk management activity. It is too late to get it. All right. So we're going to do our risk activity, which is the other sheet that you have.
And get it? Do I need to grab some
You need
more?
to grab some more because let us know.
Yeah.
Also, risk.
Do you want me to type any of the things that people say? Like, is this like a real project that you?
It's a real project that we're like in the middle of, and
So I'll type. I type really fast.
so we were running a game design summer camp for kids age 8 to 12.
8 to 12, yeah.
Yeah, with a partner that is a school. So some of our risks were low registration, which is actually, we did it last year and it was really successful, and this year is like really low, and now we're like, I don't know when that's happening. Another risk is harassment and abuse charges for counselors. And that came up just because our insurance person was like, do you have insurance for this? Because if not, you should get it. And then third one is absent or poorly performing counselor. Should I go to risk mitigation?
Yes.
Okay. So for low registration, because we're doing it with a partner, they sort of share some of the risks. This is in their best interest to promote the program as hard as we are, because they get a cut of the money. So we're sort of sharing the risk in that way. That's risk sharing, and then risk reduction. We're trying to learn from the mistakes of last year, so we want to do a better survey of parents as to like, why did you sign your kids up, and were there any barriers, that kind of a thing. And then that was like our highest risk of the ones that we came up with. For harassment and abuse charges, both of these are risk avoidance, so hopefully you never have to deal with that in the first place. So have good training for the counselors, make sure they understand exactly what those words mean and what could put you at risk for being charged with that sort of thing. And insurance. Maybe that's more risk. And we put that as like pretty low because we know we've worked with the counselors before and we're like pretty sure they wouldn't do anything, but you never know. Is the insurance. Absent poorly performing counselor. Again, the training would probably help with that if we put all the training up front. Hiring process, like what questions you're asking in the interview and all that kind of thing. And also hiring a backup person in case someone flakes out or gets sick. That is risk reduction, and that was like in the middle of our model.
Nice. Great. When I attack people's risks, I ask what if questions. So does anybody have what if questions for this project? Like what if, what is your project again? Summer camp. Okay. Other questions? What if questions? Just shout them out.
What if your organization loses all its funding?
Okay.
Yeah, that one came up.
Well, this is actually this is where our money comes from, so.
Yeah, this one's actually.
It's where the money comes
the
in.
parents pay for to register their kids. So that's where the risk sharing would be.
So
What if the registration is so low that you can't afford to run it? Oh, sorry.
And you have to, which
Okay.
yes, what if your space is not accessible for it? Or what if what in your marketing is the camp open to all? Any tips?
I think so, but we don't have like indications of whether it's wheelchair accessible.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like, what if? So what if? Even if it's not wheelchair accessible, if your camp's open to all, what if you get a child with special
like techie questions.
I was just gonna say, like, what if your computers or your software starts malfunctioning?
I can answer that. I'm the camp guy, so.
Nice.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that actually brings up another risk that we ran into which is that this year, I think they were the schools like, I think we might be having major construction, so their outdoor spaces will not be available, because our camp is half digital, half outside games, and so if, that's like a whole draw, the thing that makes it unique, so if half your outdoor space can't be used, then it's like, oh, use the basketball court, like, it's gonna be really not like subpar, but that was kind of, I think that was our backup, was like, we'll either use this park that's over here, and like, or do we make the kids cross the street, like, you know.
Do you guys stay in the space?
No, we don't.
No, it's partnership with the school, so.
Yeah, the school's the park.
What if you have one of those, like, forever lasting power outages that we had
2013.
2013, and I think sometime a little more recent too. So I'm assuming a lot of your stuff run on computers.
Well, then it would be the reverse thing where it's like, well, I guess we're all doing outdoor stuff. We're all doing the physical games. It's all we're doing.
Good. So I think that's good. So this is thank you so much for being here.
I put them in the notes in the PowerPoint.
Okay. Make sure you'll see that. All right. So you see that group, which is great. Could you imagine if this whole group did everybody's risk? You'd be like, oh, I didn't think about that. But yeah, that's what risk management planning is there. And you see there was a lot of risk, and you're like, oh yeah, that came up. That came up. But you're thinking about it. The whole thing about risk is that you actively think about risk. A lot of us don't want to think about that. We think everything's going to be like, yo, we have this project, it's a joke, we have funding, let's go. Nothing bad's going to happen, and lots of bad things may happen, right? So that's just the real importance about risk management. It's not about thinking your project's never going to happen because all these things might happen. It's just being prepared for it and having the peace of mind that you're prepared. And thinking about aspects of your project you otherwise would not have thought about if you didn't consciously make this effort. All right, I'm going to fly through the rest of them, and then we can get out of here. So project procurement management, all these fun big words, includes the processes necessary to purchase or acquire products, services, or results needed from outside your project team. So essentially we're all here, and we have staff, or we have a team, whoever, that's inside your project team. Let's say you need something and there's not one person in your team who can do that. Graphic design, we're all on Windows Paint level. You may need to procure someone out there. Or my daughter could draw you a graphic design. Okay? So that's an example of when you procure. It's when you're purchasing a service or product outside of your team directly. Okay? So you can either be the buyer or you can be the seller of the product, service, or result of a project. Okay? You also could be the graphic designers that are going on there. Okay? So what you want to do is plan procurement management. This is a really key one when this is a larger kind of project. Is you want to document your procurement process, approach, and identifying potential bidders. Okay? If you want, like that language is like real construction-y project language. However, a real life example is that camp. You just said that one of your risks is like camp counselors understanding, those policies and processes. The way that you set up your hiring process and training process, not your hiring training, sorry, and this procurement. The way you set up, your interview process, that's procurement. As you're asking specific questions and you're scoring them with specific criteria to be like, this is the best fit, they have the best knowledge, the best everything, the best counselors. That's what procurement is, essentially. So if you've ever been in an interview process, you're being procured. Okay? Somebody's procuring you, they're grading you, they're criteriaing you out, whatever they're doing, but they're picking the best candidates. That's what it is. It's all that means. And then they have, this is really the process, your process of interviewing and how you're going to find that best thing. Conduct procurements. How are you going to get your bidders? How are you going to put the notice out there? How are you going to accept bids? Your resident, again, let's go into the individual. You as an individual are being procured when you are applying for a job. So if a company is like how they conduct their procurement is what's their deadline on their application. Like gotta get in by 5. It has to be on, I don't know, 12 font space and PDF. These are the things you write and say, this is how we procure things, okay? Control your procurements. You're managing your relationships and monitoring your contracts. So once you are procured or you procure somebody or a contract or whatever, this is your this little section just spells out how you're going to manage that relationship and monitor your contracts. If you don't want to just write a contract with somebody and then just be like, oh yeah, okay, great, we all signed it, and then until something happens and you have to go back to the contract. You want to make sure that they are doing what it says in the contract. Don't go there. Don't go back to the contract when there's a problem. You want to avoid risk avoidance. Okay? So you're always monitoring and reviewing, making sure what they said they were going to do the contract is done, etc. Before they get their money. And closing your procurement. So completing the procurement itself, the process itself, and then also the procurement. So once the graphic design, the flyer is done, they get paid. Okay? That's all that means. Just buying stuff. Buying stuff with quotes. And what's the process of you buying them? Okay. I think I already talked about that. No, I talked. Oh, actually, no, that was my note. My note about contracts was to always make sure you have them. That's my note. I'm a director of this organization, but I also consult a lot and do stuff. And my motto is, if it's not on paper with a signature, we're not doing business. So we're just talking, okay? Tell my husband that. That's what we're married, okay? Sign it, but we're just talking, Mike. Yeah, so if it's not on paper and signature, you're just talking. Because if you don't have the protection, I can't, if something happens, I'm not protected. So always make sure you have contracts. Whether it's your president doing your flyer, just write up a little thing saying, this is what you're going to do for me, this is how much I'm going to pay you, and I'm pay you by this time, and you have a little contract. It's binding. But always have stuff in writing because it will protect you so much from a lot of things. It's a risk of business too.
What about initial
Initial meeting?
Yeah, like you just like, oh, this is an idea or something.
Right. So in initial meetings, I too have contracts, non-disclosures. How many initial meetings from either you have been to, or you know people who've been there like, yeah, and I haven't met this person, and all of a sudden this person just took your idea and ran with it a little faster, and you're like, oh shoot, done. But you had no protection. If you had an NDA or a non-disclosure, for example, and they ran with that idea, sue them. Actually, I would wait till they build it up and sue them. Like, my goodness, 10% you say, right? So it's all about protection. That happens a lot. Like a lot of youth who are writing grants, like, oh, I submitted my grant and I didn't get funded, and then all of a sudden the city's doing this project that sounds very much like mine, right? Non-disclosure. Okay? So we're in that era. I'm sorry. We're just in that era where people just want to snake people. Contracts, you can have it at any stage of the game. If you have a really good idea and you're talking to folks about it, that's cool. Just you sign the little thing because if you run with it, I still want my piece. That's just what it is.
How do you force a city with a non-disclosure?
Right?
Yeah, in that specific example, how does someone in that scenario applying for funding?
Yeah, that's a little harder.
It's
It's a little harder.
Yeah.
What I usually, when this has come up before, is I usually try to, when I'm writing grants, I'll write with enough detail so they understand what the project is, but not so that they can run it the way I ran it, like any specifics, not with any of my magic. It's like, so they get the gist of what it is. So somebody ran with it, okay, but I'm gonna run it and run it the way it was supposed to be, which you didn't know because it was in the grant, and still do it better. Yeah, like you can't 100% protect yourself with grants, but like the people that you're talking with, yes, absolutely. NDA that all day. And confidentiality. That's it. Yeah, that's my note about contracts. Have them. Risk avoidance. Protect yourself. Last thing is project stakeholder management. So we talked about stakeholders. You need to manage your stakeholders. This is super, super key. This part of your project management plan tells you how to manage all your different stakeholders, which is really big. If you have a project where you're working with the city and then you're working with some young people, you're working with some funders, you're working the corporate comes on. Those are four different personalities at one table. I don't know about you, I have. But if you've experienced being at a table with all those different types of stakeholders, you know people are power dynamics and language and all kinds of stuff. So you have to know how to manage. First of all, you need to identify your stakeholders. Because if you don't think you have stakeholders, you have not done the work. There are stakeholders in every project, even from the startups. If you're starting up and you have a project, you're like, all right, who's bringing me the money? Who's connecting me? Who is this project going to impact? Who's my audience? Because they're stakeholders, right? You have to identify those stakeholders before you can plan how to manage those stakeholders, right? You're going to plan those relationships. Maybe some people need a little steak dinner, and some people need pizza. That's fine, you know? Maybe some people you can just send an email, and some people you need to have a face-to-face. You have to figure out who your stakeholders are and how you're going to manage those people to get the best results of your project. Because some of these people can make or break you, yes? Somebody in my class, when I did a class, my professor told me this crazy example about a project that I can't remember who was doing it. I think it was like a university or like a public thing or something like that. Although, actually I can think of a similar example of my own that I heard about. So there was like a festival, I think it was a Way Home festival or something like that, and they had it like way out in wherever. And failed to identify their little stakeholders, aka the community that surrounds, and that community petitioned and said, yo, that's too loud, like you're not listening to us, whatever, city shut it down. That's it.
Wow.
There's your project. Got it. You did not think that the people surrounding here that aren't part of your bottom line, because they're probably like not your demographic, had no power, but they did. Oh, that was the example my professor had. Remember when like protesting was just coming up in like the Seattle March? That was actually it, and there's a project that was actually against, and they had to close that project down because of the protests, right? And because they failed to do the community, they do the community like sessions and whatever. Trust me, town halls, when you fail to do that, and the community's like, no. And they're like, shut it down, shut down the project. And that's why you see a lot of those, like, oh, we're zoning for this condo community, because they have to do that. Because that's a stakeholder, and they can shut down the project with enough force. Okay? So make sure your project doesn't get shut down because you failed to identify and bring in and manage the relationship with that stakeholder. Okay? Manage stakeholder engagement. So that's just your plan around how you're going to engage, like I said, dinner. And control your stakeholder engagement. So monitoring your stakeholders and adjusting your plans to manage them. Okay? That's again, when you have multiple stakeholders at the table, you have to really work that table and figure out a medium between the folks that are there. Because one person's not going to want what the other side wants. Especially when there's a huge dichotomy and gap between them, rich or poor, power or no power or less power. Those are the hardest to manage because you got to work it around. Even language, corporate versus Toronto Random slang. You have to be the person in between translating all the time, right? If you're making people feel welcome at the table. That's all in this plan right here, right? Stakeholder management is also for you as an individual, as a startup. Because again, you will identify your stakeholders and you will speak in that language to them. You will find the way that brings them in, because the person at the bank who's approving your business plan, you're not going to speak to them or present to them the same way that speak or to the industry person, right? You're going to speak their language and present in the way that they want to be presented. Business plan is kind of boring and dry. Industry people, you should probably hire graphic designers if you don't know how to do graphic design, because they're going to want to see something snazzy and like nice and okay, impress me, right? And those are all different examples of the things you would find in a project stakeholder management. Identifying and then figuring out how you manage all this. So fun, isn't it? Also, a note about sustainability. When you're managing your stakeholders, this is a lovely word you want to think about. Particularly if your stakeholders hold power and money, you're managing them to also look not just at the project as is now, but also where can this project go? You're building relationships, because if you manage your stakeholders right, they are going to be like you, not just the project. And then when you want to do another project, you're like, yeah, I developed you right now. That's great. The last project went well. Or, you know, like we really felt involved. Now I feel connected. Now I want to throw more money at this. Now it's kind of like my project too. corporate guy, but they're going to throw the money at it anyway. So this is managing, you do that management of your stakeholders effectively, it will really feed into this part, sustaining that project beyond the start and end part. Phase 2 could start. Next phase, expanded, whatever it is, but it's really about that. This is just not being shut down immediately. Another fun tip from FONA. Organizations are wasting an average of $97 million for every $1 billion invested. Well, that's not very good. Due to poor project performance. And this is key, whether you're a corporate $97 million, whether you're a $10,000 ArtReach grant. Okay? Efficiency comes with better project performance. If you spend less time bickering and arguing about a miscommunication, less time putting in money from your contingency because a risk came up you didn't plan, less time, I and the POI Institute expects to see 22 new project managers jobs opening for 2026. That could be you. Taking your community knowledge, right? So think of the stuff that you're doing now as, well, A, it is experience and it is practice for if you are interested in this. And you can always, it doesn't have to be your full-time, you can do a side, it's good for side hustles, all kind of stuff, right? A lot of us are running projects on the side. Newly created positions are expected to occur each year in project management-oriented industries in the 11 countries analyzed. Hey, look, we're one of them. So you can, as you can see, it's developing rapidly. And this is just going to tell you about what jobs are out there. If you're not ready to be a full PMP, or you don't have your PMP and your project manager, that sounds kind of scary because everybody depends on me. You could also look for stuff like project coordinator, project scheduler, or assistant to the project manager. And sometimes these are really good to start because then you actually get that experience in the industry, project management in the industry you want to be in, or just you could hop to different industries and figure out where you're really excelling in project management in that industry. So that's really good. And now, how to translate your community project skills to the industry. Oh, that will, oh. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So what you would do, a whole new world, I'm not allowed to reference. But seriously, you can go to a lot of places with project management, whereas in other industries with very specific skill set, you have to be in that industry, right? You know IT, you're in IT, that's it. Right? You know project management, you can do everything from education to IT to medical to whatever you want to do. It's really about running projects. And that's what we really become good at in community. Running projects and programs all the time, getting the practice all the time.